Welcome back. We're now joined by John Utting, the Managing Director and Major Shareholder of UMR Research. Business has been going for 20 years, one of the most successful polling organisations in the country. I think it's fair to say they've held the Labor Party federal account and various state accounts for the last 20 years. So he is the man that does the polling for the ALP. So first question to you, John. Thank you for coming along tonight. How do you read the polls in the last few months? Are Labor coming back in the polls, and why?
Look, all the evidence indicates that Labor's coming back. It's making a slow but steady recovery. There's no doubt about it at the moment. We've still got ground to make up, but the expectation, if the current trends and dynamics continue, I expect by about the second quarter next year we'll be on parity or slightly ahead. I think what's driving that is basically an increased recognition amongst voters about the inner strengths of a Prime Minister and the skills set she brings to the job, and a growing chasm of doubts about the suitability of the opposition leader to make the transition to being Prime Minister.
John, I was very interested yesterday in the Prime Minister's line she used in that long press conference, not on Slater and Gordon, but it was in her preamble talking about the opposition. These are not John Howard's Liberals. Does that play into the concerns about Tony Abbott, that he's a very different type of Liberal leader to the former Prime Minister?
It really does. There's been a perception between the kind of what you'd call middle-class values of essentially Howard, which sat at the centre of gravity of the Australian political scene, and very much what's seen as an increasing element of sort of extremism. The essential view is that the opposition leader and the crew around him are much more off-centre from where the centre of gravity of Australian opinion is, and that is actually one of the fundamental things that is feeding through into the voter equation at the moment.
Is that in style or substance, policy, or a combination?
No, stylistically they all appear to be very similar. You know, they're all middle-aged sort of white men in suits, but what is beginning to sort of permeate out and leach into the consciousness of the voter is that a lot of these blokes are much more sort of socially conservative, much further away from where most modern Australians and most of their families are, and that's taking a while to register, but as that increasingly registers, I think it's very similar to a Romney-like situation, which, you know, you start off somewhere and in the end you're not close to where the centre of gravity of the political equation is.
But John, if all that's true, why did Labor's primary vote get down to 26%?
Well, look, I think that the idea of a female Prime Minister, I think that some of the issues which are now under control, you know, a lot of things happen at once. It's like getting into a boat and it tips a bit, and I think that as we've found our centre of gravity, as we've got the balance and we've got the issue management under control, as the voters have had more chance to see the Prime Minister, see her in action, what she can deliver, things have begun to improve, and improve both consistently and significantly.
In fairness to Mr Abbott, you might have to swallow hard, but what would you identify as his strengths in the electorate?
Well, look, in a sense, he's got a good blokey mainstream image. There's no doubt about it. But the kind of the values that he projects and actually appears to live actually do reflect the attitudes of a significant proportion of voters. There's no doubt about that. But it's not good enough just satisfying your constituency. You have to have this ability to reach out, engage, and actually engage quite substantively groups of people who otherwise wouldn't be attracted to you.
Right, so what you're saying is that Abbott is appealing to the base, but not this new, more modern group in the middle that are increasingly determining election results.
Yeah, in Sydney terms, you know, he's got a good, what I'd call, upper North Shore kind of base, but, you know, but to get into the kind of the western suburbs, the southwest and places like that, he's a stranger to a lot of those people in terms of what he represents.
But John, the way you're talking, it sounds as if Labor are in front in the polls, and they're not. Can you identify one seat in the whole country where you think Labor are going to win at the next election from the coalition?
From the coalition? Look, I couldn't identify one seat, but I could say that 3 or 4 seats will definitely pick up in Queensland for a couple of reasons. A, the kind of structural trend that's working in our favour, and more importantly, the kind of meltdown that's going on in the Queensland state government. So I would like to put my finger on one, but I could put my finger on a basket, and I reckon, you know, one of the recoveries will be in Queensland.
All right, we're going to hold you to that prediction, and we're going to have you back on the show next year, and we're going to see how good you are. As good as you are at UMR Research, you couldn't get Mark Latham elected.
No, he wasn't Superman.
He wasn't Superman.
He wasn't Superman.
We've all made mistakes, John. Anyway.
Politics is an averages game.
Oh, that was the electorate's mistake, not John's.
Hawke always said the electorate got it right, but you reckon they got it wrong in your year.
Oh, I've got to say that.
You've
What
got to
do you
say
think?
that.
I'm a mug.
Mark Latham, thank you very much indeed for joining me here tonight. John Utting, thank you very much indeed for coming with us tonight. We'll look forward to talking to you again in more detail next year. That's it for the show tonight, this special edition of Showdown. We'll be back in December for another edition. We'll see you then.